He didn't say what he'd done. He just said, "I did something bad to Mom." That sentence is like a crack in ice, quiet, thin, and suddenly everything beneath it gives way. Back in Aurora, Illinois, there was a house that had already gone silent. Inside it was a woman who had spent 55 years being someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's mother. A woman whose life ended not in a hospital, not on a street corner, but inside her own home, a place that should have been a shelter, not a trap. What happened to her was not quick. It was not accidental. It was not a moment. She was stabbed again and again, 26 times, the kind of violence that isn't about anger alone, but about something breaking beyond repair. And after it was over, she wasn't left in the open. She was placed in a closet, like a secret, like a problem to be hidden, like a life that could be folded away. The next day, police would find her. But before that, there was just that sentence hanging in the air. "I did something bad to Mom." And once you hear it, you never hear it the same way again. Abel Quiñones Herstad was 23 years old at the time his life came under public scrutiny, but his story began much earlier, shaped by instability rather than intent. He was adopted as a young child, moving into a home that tried to provide structure while navigating challenges that emerged early and often. By childhood, warning signs were already present. Behavioral crises were not occasional. They were recurrent, documented, and disruptive to daily life. According to testimony later provided by his adoptive mother, Abel was hospitalized more than 40 times for mental health emergencies. These hospitalizations spanned years, not months. They included involuntary holds, emergency evaluations, and repeated discharges back into a household already under strain. Records showed cycles: crisis, stabilization, release, repeat. Despite weekly outpatient therapy during his teenage years, improvement did not hold. The family searched for residential treatment centers, seeking long-term care rather than short-term containment. None would admit him. Some cited age. Others cited risk. By late adolescence, options narrowed to supervision rather than solution. Inside the home, the pressure was constant. His sister would later describe a household shaped around anticipation, waiting for the next episode, the next call, the next escalation. Yet she also described something else, that their mother was the person who loved and protected him the most. Even during what she called a constant crisis, his mother remained the anchor, the one who did not disengage. She monitored appointments, tracked medications, and intervened when systems failed. Abel's brother occupied a different role. He was often the one Abel turned to when distance was needed, a familiar presence outside the immediate household. Their relationship was quieter, defined less by caretaking and more by availability, someone Abel could reach when emotions overwhelmed structure. As a teenager, Abel spoke about working with computers and technical systems. Teachers noted aptitude when stability allowed attendance. Those interests never matured into a career, interrupted repeatedly by hospital stays and treatment gap. Progress existed, but it was fragile. When Abel turned 18, another transition occurred. He reunited with his biological mother, Edith Gonzalez-Alarcon, re-entering a relationship interrupted in early childhood. Son of Edith Gonzalez-Alarcon, a detail that would later matter far beyond family history alone. That identity closed one chapter, opening another. Edith Gonzalez-Alarcon was 55 years old in July 2022. She was a mother of multiple children, including a daughter and 2 sons, and she carried the role with consistency rather than spectacle. Family members described her as practical, protective, and persistent. Her life revolved around caretaking, appointments kept, crises managed, doors left open when systems closed. She worked, maintained a home, and absorbed pressure quietly. In the words later offered by her daughter, Edith was the one who loved and protected him the most, even when that love demanded constant vigilance. By 2022, Edith shared an apartment with her adult son on Jackson Place in Aurora, Illinois. The arrangement followed his reunion with her at age 18. Records and testimony would later show that she remained the primary stabilizing force in his life, monitoring treatment, responding to emergencies, and maintaining structure when professional care proved inconsistent. There was no evidence of disengagement. There was continuity. On July 14, 2022, that continuity ended. According to prosecutors, the attack occurred inside the apartment they shared. Edith was stabbed 26 times with a knife, primarily in the torso. The wounds were numerous and close range, indicating sustained contact rather than a single impulsive strike. There was no evidence of forced entry. The violence occurred within a familiar space. After the assault, her body was moved. Prosecutors stated that Edith was placed inside a bedroom closet and covered with a blanket. The act suggested concealment rather than flight. Investigators later recovered 2 knives believed to be involved. One was found hidden under a rug in the living room. The second was discovered beneath a pillow. Both were inside the apartment. Following the killing, Abel Quiñones-Herstad left Illinois. He traveled north to West Allis, Wisconsin, to the residence of his brother. Upon arrival, he told his brother that he had done something bad and could not return home. The statement was brief and unspecific. It was enough. His brother contacted the Aurora Police Department and requested a welfare check. On the morning of July 15, 2022, Aurora police officers arrived at the Jackson Place apartment. Before entry, they observed blood on the floor near the doorway. Inside, they followed the visible trail. Edith Gonzalez-Alarcon was found deceased in the closet, covered. The apartment showed no signs of a struggle extending beyond its walls. The violence had remained contained. The person who called for help was not inside the home. Edith's daughter would later speak for the family. Her statement emphasized not only loss, but role, that Edith had been the constant presence in a life marked by instability. What was discovered in that apartment did not emerge from chaos alone. It followed years of care, endurance, and proximity, ending where responsibility had long resided. The distance from Aurora, Illinois to West Allis, Wisconsin, is approximately 90 miles north. By car, the drive takes about 1 hour and 30 minutes under normal conditions. Investigators would later note that this was not a flight from law enforcement. It was a directed trip, point to point, toward a known address and a known person. After leaving the Jackson Place apartment in Aurora on July 14, 2022, Abel Quiñones-Herstad traveled directly to his brother's residence in West Allis. Upon arrival, he told his brother that he had done something bad to their mother and that he could not return home. The statement was not accompanied by detail. It did not minimize or explain. It functioned as disclosure. His brother acted immediately. He contacted the Aurora Police Department and requested a welfare check at the Aurora apartment, stating that his brother had confessed to harming their mother. That call established the first formal notification to law enforcement. It also created jurisdictional clarity. The alleged crime location was Aurora, Illinois. The reporting party was in Wisconsin. The suspect was physically present in Wisconsin. On the morning of July 15, 2022, Aurora police conducted the welfare check. They observed blood outside the apartment door, entered the residence, and discovered Edith Gonzalez-Alarcon deceased in a closet. Based on the brother's report and the scene findings, Aurora investigators identified a suspect located out of state. Interstate protocol followed. Illinois authorities coordinated with Wisconsin law enforcement to locate and detain Quiñones-Herstad. In cases involving felony offenses, states rely on cooperative arrest authority. Wisconsin officers are permitted to detain a suspect based on probable cause established by another state's investigation. That detention initiates the extradition process rather than immediate prosecution in the arresting state. Quiñones-Herstad was taken into custody in Wisconsin without reported resistance. He was held pending transfer to Illinois. The legal mechanism used is standard. The arresting state conducts an initial appearance to confirm identity and the validity of the requesting state's warrant. The accused may waive extradition or contest it. Records indicate the process moved forward without prolonged delay. Once extradition was authorized, Quiñones-Herstad was physically transferred back to Illinois custody. From that point forward, all judicial proceedings, including charging, mental health evaluations, pretrial detention, and sentencing, fell under Illinois jurisdiction. The response timeline was direct. A confession to a family member prompted a call. A welfare check confirmed a homicide. Interstate coordination secured the suspect. The distance traveled did not complicate the investigation. It clarified intent to disclose, not evade. From disclosure to detention, the system operated without ambiguity. The crime scene at the Aurora apartment presented controlled disorder. Blood was concentrated, not dispersed, indicating the assault occurred in a confined area rather than throughout the residence. There were no signs of forced entry. Furniture was upright. Drawers were closed. This narrowed the window of activity to a single, contained event. 2 knives were recovered inside the home. One was found beneath a rug in the living room, its blade bearing visible blood staining. A second knife was located under a pillow in a bedroom. Both were standard household kitchen knives, accessible, familiar, and consistent with the environment. No foreign weapons were introduced. The autopsy provided the first layer of specificity. Edith Gonzalez-Alarcon sustained 26 stab wounds, the majority concentrated in the torso. Several wounds penetrated vital organs. The medical examiner documented wound tracks of varying depths, some exceeding several centimeters, consistent with forceful, repeated thrusts rather than superficial contact. The width of the wounds matched a single-edged blade with a tapered point. Forensic comparison followed. Analysts examined blade width, edge profile, and tip geometry against the wound margins. One knife, the one recovered from beneath the rug, matched the wound characteristics in both width and depth tolerance. Microscopic examination revealed tissue residue consistent with the victim's injuries. The second knife showed no comparable biological correlation. The pattern of wounds revealed sequencing. Some injuries were survivable individually. Others were immediately fatal. This sequencing indicated sustained contact rather than a single impulsive strike. Defensive wounds were minimal, suggesting limited opportunity to resist. The body's placement added another data point. After the assault, the victim was moved to a bedroom closet and covered with a blanket. This action occurred after death. There was no evidence of post-mortem injury. The concealment was physical, not forensic. No attempt to clean blood, no effort to eliminate evidence beyond hiding the body and the weapon. What delayed the trial was not lack of evidence. It was competency. Following arrest, Quiñones-Herstad underwent court-ordered mental health evaluations. He was repeatedly found unfit to stand trial. Fitness is a legal threshold, not a diagnosis. A defendant must understand the proceedings and be able to assist counsel. For extended periods, he could not. As a result, he was committed to a state mental health hospital while in custody. Treatment focused on restoration of competency, not punishment. This process took years. During that time, the criminal case was paused by law. Proceedings cannot advance against a defendant deemed incompetent. Only after evaluators determined he met the legal standard for fitness did the case resume. The evidence had not changed. The knives remained logged. The autopsy findings stood. What changed was procedural permission. The delay was not uncertainty. It was statute. The transfer back to Illinois did not happen quickly. After his arrest in Wisconsin in July 2022, Quiñones-Herstad remained there while Illinois authorities initiated extradition. The process took months, not days. 2 states, 2 court systems, and formal warrants were involved. Wisconsin courts first had to approve the release. Illinois then assumed physical custody. This delay was procedural, not discretionary. By late 2022, he was returned to Illinois and placed in the Kane County Jail. Within days, the court ordered comprehensive mental health evaluations. These were not routine screenings. They were formal fitness assessments required when a defendant's ability to understand the case is in question. The first evaluations raised immediate concerns. Clinicians reported that he could not consistently grasp the role of the judge, the function of a jury, or the consequences of legal decisions. Under Illinois law, that finding halted criminal proceedings. He was declared unfit to stand trial. From there, custody shifted. He was transferred from jail to a state mental health facility operated by Illinois. The purpose was restoration, not release. Treatment focused on stabilization, medication compliance, and structured monitoring. Progress was measured in months, sometimes reversed, then reassessed. This cycle repeated. Evaluation, treatment, review, return to custody. Over the next 3 years, he moved between the Kane County Jail and the state hospital as courts received updated competency reports. Each transfer required judicial approval. Each decision was documented. Illinois carries a heavy mental health burden. State health data consistently shows tens of thousands of residents living with serious mental illness at any given time, with thousands cycling through emergency rooms, jails, and state facilities each year. Correctional settings have become default holding spaces for conditions they were never designed to treat. This case sat at that intersection. Mental illness alone does not predict violence. But untreated illness, repeated crises, and gaps in long-term residential care create risk, especially when families are left to manage without support. Monitoring requires continuity, consistent treatment, supervision, and early intervention when behavior escalates. When those systems fracture, the consequences are not theoretical. By the time this phase ended, Quiñones-Herstad had spent 1,243 days in custody. That time included confinement in the Kane County Jail and extended placement in a state mental health hospital. Every day was logged. Every transfer recorded. Nothing about this period brought closure. It was waiting, structured, clinical, and legally required. The case did not move forward because it could not. And the lesson was already present. When care arrives only after collapse, it is no longer prevention. It is containment. By December 2025, the case reached its legal conclusion. The delays that defined it, extradition, restoration attempts, repeated fitness evaluations, had run their course. The court found Abel Quiñones-Herstad fit to proceed under Illinois Statute 725 ILCS 5/104-10, which governs a defendant's competency to stand trial. That finding did not erase his psychiatric history. It established only one thing. He could now understand the proceedings and assist counsel. He entered a plea to first-degree murder under 720 ILCS 5/9-1. The charge carried no ambiguity. Illinois law classifies it as a non-probationable offense. At sentencing, prosecutors emphasized the facts: 26 stab wounds, a concealed body, a delay in discovery. The argument was procedural and restrained. The violence, the concealment, and the certainty of death met statutory thresholds for the maximum range of punishment. Defense attorneys did not deny the killing. Their argument centered on mitigation. They presented years of psychiatric records, more than 40 hospitalizations, and testimony describing repeated failures to secure long-term residential treatment. They argued diminished capacity, not as an excuse but as context. They asked the court to weigh illness alongside harm. Victim impact statements reframed the case. Edith Gonzalez-Alarcon's daughter spoke of a mother who absorbed instability without retreat, a woman who provided housing, supervision, and care during constant crisis. She described protection as routine, not heroic, something Edith did quietly until it cost her life. The court listened. Under Illinois truth in sentencing laws, first-degree murder requires 100% of the imposed sentence to be served. No parole. No early release. The judge imposed 38 years in prison, crediting 1,243 days already served in jail and a state mental health facility. Immediately after sentencing, Quinones Herstad was transferred to the Illinois Department of Corrections. Intake evaluations followed, medical, psychiatric, and security classifications. His permanent facility would be assigned by IDOC, but jurisdiction shifted completely to the state prison system. This outcome reflects how Illinois handles cases at the intersection of violence and mental illness. Fitness statutes determine when a case can proceed. Sentencing statutes determine how punishment is imposed. Neither statute resolves the underlying gaps that preceded the crime. That is the final contrast. The law closed the case, but the conditions that shaped it, untreated illness, delayed intervention, family isolation, remain active in thousands of homes. And that is where the next conversation begins. This case did not begin with violence. It began with years of warning signs that never found a permanent answer. Edith Gonzalez-Alarcon lived inside that reality. She carried it quietly. She protected. She accommodated. She stayed. Not because it was easy, but because love, for her, was a responsibility that did not expire when things became unbearable. That is how this story should be remembered. Not by the number of wounds, not by courtroom statutes, but by the life that held everything together until it could no longer be held. The system eventually spoke. The law issued its sentence. Records were filed. Doors were closed. But justice in cases like this is never clean. It is layered. It leaves behind grief that does not resolve with a verdict and questions that extend far beyond one family, one illness, or one crime. BriefCrime exists to tell these stories with care, without spectacle, without distortion, so victims are not reduced to headlines, and truths are not buried under noise. If this case moved you, challenged you, or made you pause, the simplest way to support this work is to stay with us. Subscribe to BriefCrime. Not for entertainment, but for remembrance, understanding, and the stories that deserve to be told accurately and humanely.